What's up, everybody? Welcome to the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today is Monday, May 10th, 2 days after El Tráfico, the first El Tráfico that happened this season. It was an exciting one. It was a thrilling one. It had everything you wanted. It had emotions, it had controversial calls. Chicharito scored. We all know what happened. But we're going to recap the game. We're going to talk about that in depth. And here to help me talk about that, we got Andy Deossa and we got Alicia Rodriguez. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Before we get started, before we even get deep into it, we just got to give a shout out to all the mothers out there and also to Alicia Rodriguez, who's a mother. So happy Mother's Day to you, Alicia.
Mother's Day.
I hope you spent it well. Did the family take care of you? I'm assuming they did.
Yes, definitely. I for the most part shut out soccer for the day, which I think you probably know for me is a hard thing to do, but it was also something that was needed. So had a good day with the family, ate some good food, no complaints on my end.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, my mother lives out of state, so I gave her a call, reminiscent of the good old times, getting whooped by like the chancla and all that stuff, making her laugh. What about you, Andy? How'd you spend Mother's Day?
Yeah, same, man. My mom is on the other side of the country, so make sure I called in on her and my sister and, make sure that we're good. Sent my mom some money to buy some sneakers she wanted, and that's basically about it. I kind of relaxed on my own yesterday.
Hey, she got the kicks. What she get? Some Air Forces or what?
She's trying to find some new gym sneakers, so we'll see what she comes up with.
Yeah, I know you're definitely, man. You got some style, so I wouldn't be surprised if your mom also has a little bit of swag. But yeah, obviously it was Mother's Day. There was a lot going on. Obviously, Andy and I we went to the game. We carpooled. That was a lot of fun. Just going into that, right? And we also got to see how the experience is, right, going up to the stadium, and how we drove from the side, and how not all of the parking is pretty much just taken up. But Andy, what were your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, it was just cool, man. I mean, I think we've talked about it just all the time. Like the difference that the fans make in games in general is something you can't really put a price on, but just in this rivalry, on top of just being fans back, it's amazing because we were at the stadium last year where we would have to watch these games in silence in an empty stadium, and it sort of feels like a preseason scrimmage. I mean, there's still the intensity between the two teams and the rivalry and everything that goes into it, but just seeing people back outside celebrating and tailgating and the banter back and forth between the two clubs leading up to the game, it's what makes this fun. On top of the fact that the soccer is usually pretty entertaining itself.
Yeah, and Alicia, for you, how excited were you to watch this game, the first El Tráfico of the season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a big game for both teams coming in. I think they were in a similar mindset coming into the game, so it wasn't a situation where one team was doing really great and one team was doing poorly. I think, it was early in the season, obviously, but I think both teams, felt like they had a good chance coming into the game, and I think that helped contribute to how the game turned out. I think both teams can feel pretty good about some parts of the game, and both teams can feel not so good about other parts of the game. And obviously the victor is going to be a lot happier about, how it turned out.
Definitely. Quick in the chat, we got G-Man saying, Gio, what's up, G-Man? Always a pleasure to have you on. Sebastian says, nice. Sebastian also says, save the crew. I'm with you on that. My goodness, what were they thinking there? We'll talk about that too, man. That is one of the most historic logos and everything. They want to be a global brand, but come on now.
Terrible.
Be local first, and then go global. Come on now. I don't know. That got me a little hyped. But Andy, you and I, obviously you were with me doing fan interviews, and I think for me is it's always a reminder how passionate each fans are, right? And how they're so witty with when we're talking about them, the jerseys or just different things. It's just man, this feels like the old times when we used to go to the stadiums with the fans and stuff. What did you take of that from the fan interviews?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, for a rivalry, you're gonna have, I guess, the sense of there's actually people that don't like each other, which is unfortunate, but that's just kind of natural when it comes to rivalries in sports. But along the same lines, you see LAFC fans and Galaxy fans in the parking lot interacting and just having fun before the game, and it's it reminds you of the community aspect of what this rivalry brings, not only to LA but to MLS. And I think one of the guys said it, at the end of the day, it's all fun and games, but we're just happy that the product is growing, the fan bases are growing, and And LA is at the forefront of showing that with such an important rivalry with two teams that really get after each other and two fan bases that are really passionate about, what those franchises are doing. So it's just really a beautiful thing to see the sport keep growing and the league keep growing as well.
Yeah, and I think what I was talking to a fan after the game, he's like, I don't know how old you are, man, but he's like, I remember what they wouldn't even show MLS on Sports Center. And I was like, yeah, I don't think it was until like Beckham or whatever. And it just brought back so many memories. Like, dang, it really has like, grown so much. Alicia, I'm assuming you remember those times. Like, obviously now going into this game in this rivalry, like MLS is, it's on Big Fox now. It's on national TV, and like, it's only getting better and better. What are your thoughts on MLS finally getting, somewhat of the respect that it deserves?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because when the game ended on Saturday, the local Fox affiliate went into an MLS like highlight show. Mm-hmm. And I thought that they, at first I was impressed that they were even covering El Tráfico at all. And then I was impressed that they were doing like other games. They're like, oh, here's what happened in Nashville's game. And I'm like, this is network television in Los Angeles. This is incredible, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I still go around in LA. What do you do? Oh, I cover soccer. Oh, cool. Like, what do you cover? MLS. Oh, I went to a Galaxy game, like, I don't know, 15 years ago. Like it's still a little bit niche. So to have them putting it on TV, and like you said with Fox, the more often they're going to put these games on like over-the-air network television, the better the ratings are going to be. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, as long as the networks are willing to put it on, there's going to be people watching, and that's going to be a gateway for more people to pick up on it and find out about it. And we're still in that moment when there's still tons of growth potential, and there's still a bunch of people who could be MLS fans, and they just haven't really encountered it yet. And that's exciting, because it's cool to be in an earlier moment and to see the growth. And we've seen so much growth. Like, I've been covering this league for a decade, and to see the growth over the last decade has been remarkable. But we're just scratching the surface. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I know, and it is. I was with you. So obviously, Alicia, you know this, but the people listening and watching in the press box, they play the game, but they play with the audio. And I saw that Fox, they were like recapping the games, and I forgot my man's name. I know who he is, but he was recapping the game, recapping the MLS, and I was like, is he really going through the MLS in different games? And I was like, I literally felt like in my mind, I was like, MLS is like stepping it up. You know what I'm saying? It's like literally stepping it up, and I like that, because it's within LA. You're starting to get these games more on the local channels where everybody can tune in, everybody can watch. And obviously, this is a game that everybody wants to see, and that's how you're gonna get more of the fans. So I like that. I was really impressed with that, and I hope to continue. G-Man said, "How can three goats fit in one video?" He's always good, man. I don't know, man. I don't know how you do it, G-Man. I feel like you're the GOAT when it comes to these comments. Galaxy Guy podcast user, these games always provide tremendous entertainment. At the end of the day, it's all about entertainment. LAFC always brings out the best of the LA Galaxy, and vice versa. Sebastian says, quick question, what do you guys think about the development of Los Angeles kids and academies on the two clubs? Alicia, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's going to be interesting, because we're going through a little bit of a reorganization period. The two MLS teams' academies did not shut down, but they have gone to a new competition. They're doing some reorganization over the past year. And so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the new competition shakes out over time, and how the recruiting wars sort of shake out between the teams, because I think we've seen in any market where there's more than one dominant or more than one MLS academy, pathway to pro academy system, when you have a couple of them in the same spot, there's usually a lot of competition, and usually one will have the upper hand for a while and the other one will come through. I think at this point, they're probably on a pretty even keel, but we'll have to see kind of who emerges next to get supremacy through the next batch of prospects and the next group of pros who actually come through and start playing games.
Yeah, and I mean, a game like this Saturday could literally sway a kid, seeing Chicharito go, I'm like, I'll go represent, Galaxy, or, Carlos Vela was playing, he scored. That could sway him over there. Sebastian says we have to defeat the San Quakes, assuming you're a Galaxy fan. Alexa says, people say no one watches MLS, and they're 100% wrong. I 100% agree with you. It's getting more and more exciting. These rivalries are getting better and better. The only thing that was missing was 100% capacity. G-Man says another question. Will the Galaxy and LAFC outgrow their partnership that they have with CSUDH and CSULA? What are your thoughts, Alicia, on that?
Well, I don't think the Galaxy will, because their stadium's located on the campus of Cal State Dominguez Hills. So, I mean, a lot would have to happen for that to change. In the case of LAFC, their relationship with Cal State LA is with the training ground. It's a small spot, but they specifically wanted to be in and around Los Angeles. It's hard to find open space. So until they decide they want to make a megaplex out in, Orange County or way in the valley or something, I think they'll probably stick with it. If anything, I wouldn't anticipate any change in that relationship unless we're, a couple coaches down the line, something like that. I think with the personnel that they have at present, I don't see anyone necessarily aiming to make any big changes there.
Yeah. Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for the Galaxy, it's tough because they're right there. And that complex at Dignity Health Sports Park gets used for a lot of other things. I mean, the teams that go there during the preseason when the refs come to California, the U.S. National team. So that's a really well-used complex. And on the LAFC side, I mean, they went through a lot to get that going there. Like Alicia said, it's the location, I think, is what is most intriguing about it. But it's a nice facility, and for the players and the staff, it probably does make sense that they're located there instead of something like Orange County, where it makes it a lot more difficult to access. So I don't anticipate any changes on either of those.
Yeah, no. So Sebastian says, I agree with both of you guys are saying. Sebastian says, no, they're called the SJ Quacks. I apologize. I guess I was taught the wrong way. I thought they were the Earthquakes. Edgar says, Eduardo, so my bad. He says, my wish is that this rivalry becomes more like River versus Boca. Definitely LAFC needs to start winning championships. That will spark up even more. Well, I think there needs to be decades before we get into that, but I hopefully it gets to that point. And I'm sorry if you guys hear any noise in the background. They're doing some development over here next to my apartment. So I don't know can you guys hear that?
A little bit, but
a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting by.
It's not a I promise it's not a earthquake like we experienced in the game. It's they're remodeling the apartment next door to me. So we'll just have to go with it. So let's talk about this game, Andy. Obviously it was an emotional game, like we said earlier. But let's start with the Galaxy side, and then we'll go into the LAFC side. So the LA Galaxy started without Victor Vasquez, right? And I think because of his groin, and I was wondering how the midfield would play, right? So I think we got our answers to that. But what were your thoughts on how they played? Obviously, Adam Saldana played. Sebastian Lletget was up there. Grand Sir. What were your thoughts on the midfield in the first half?
Yeah, I thought they looked solid. I mean, it was interesting because LAFC played their game and obviously wanted to dominate possession, and that's really what they did. But that early goal, it kind of changed everything, and it was like as soon as that ball goes in the back end, you could already see Bob on the sideline scrambling and trying to figure out, all right, how we're going to approach this. And they really did try to kind of go about it a different way. And I think, from my perception, is Bob really wanted to equalize it before halftime. He ended up playing with 3 men in the back line for a good majority of the second half towards the end. I mean, the first half towards the end before halftime, trying to push for that equalizer. That obviously never came in that first half. So I think the Galaxy held their own. I mean, they looked like they were up for the challenge. They were well prepared. Getting Lletget back out there obviously is a big boost. And it was just funny because watching Dos Santos in the first half, he looked a little bit slow, but he was all over the field. And you play a team like LAFC, it tires those players out. But the resiliency that they showed in that first half, and then obviously in the second to see it through was pretty amazing from that squad.
Alicia, how did you see? Let's talk about the goal. How did you see Chicharito's goal? Because when I saw it, I was in the middle of the press box, and I couldn't see if he was onside or outside. I just saw it. I was like, wow, he got the ball, and then obviously he scored. How did you see that play from home? Well,
there's two parts there. The one part, was it offside or not? I think it was pretty close. I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily think that that's a case where you'd say it was so clearly offside that it had to be overturned. I think it could have gone either way, honestly. And frankly, I don't think there was anything here where there was a makeup non-call or anything like that. But last year, LAFC won a game on a ball that went over the end line, and then they went down the other end and scored. And this maybe was kind of a cosmic makeup for that, frankly. And, the Galaxy fans were really upset last time. This time they're like, hey, it looked okay to me. LAFC fans, last time they were like, don't worry about it. We played the whistle. This time they're like, so unfair, so unfair. So, it kind of evens out, I think, in a sense. And I know that doesn't sound very satisfying, but anyway, that was, I think, kind of a cosmic balance of the universe for those two calls potentially. But on the goal itself, I mean, what was really impressive was how the ball ended up at Chicharito's feet. Derek Williams makes this sliding tackle on an LAFC counterattack, and we know that LAFC is really proficient at counterattacking. So if they had really sprung it, I mean, who knows what could have happened? They could have scored a goal right there. So first of all, he saves the counter. He stops the counter dead in its tracks before it really gets going. And his sliding tackle was like pitch perfect, like textbook tackle. And then the tackle ends up going straight to Chicharito's feet, which is like one of the most like freakish / impressive plays you'll ever see. It's like, I don't think he could have, tried to specifically pass it to Chicharito, but it just ended up going straight to him. And, good for Chicharito to be ready, make the quick turn, get the shot off right away and not get kind of like, whoa, what happened? Because I think, a lot of players probably would have gotten frozen in that moment. He capitalized, but that was really impressive. Williams, I think, had a fantastic game overall. I think he did a lot of emergency defending on the day. Again, I don't think he meant to assist that goal, but, full credit to him for making the play and actually getting the ball to the goal scorer who did his work and got it done.
Yeah, people. I'm gonna play the goal here. I have it. People in the comments, let me know. Was it offsides? What are your thoughts? Was it offsides? Yes or no? And I'm gonna play the goal right now.
Murillo stooping low, big tackle to hold it in there, and Chicharito! Well, we wondered what this game might do to the LA Galaxy. Look at the intensity and the effort. And the tackle here from Williams. Tracking back. Tackles Cifuentes straight to Chicharito. Time and space inside the box. Opens up and finds that far post. It was close for offside there, but that tackle is so good.
Yeah, so it was quite. When I look back at it, I was like, it was close, but like obviously, I'm assuming it went to VAR because they took a little bit, and then I think when I was watching it, I was like, it was a quick decision, so it was never like they took long when I was, at the stadium. So I was like, oh, okay, he definitely wasn't offsides. But then like I think after the game, a lot of the media people were talking about it. They're like, hey, that looked like it was offsides, right? And we're talking with a few people, and I was like, I recorded it, but I just saw like the side angle. I didn't see the TV angle, right? So I felt like it was good, right? And obviously after the game, that was the big topic that he was offsides, right? But right, if you're LAFC, Andy, and that happens, right? You go down and go early, the first 10 minutes. How did you feel that they responded after kind of like that goal happened? Because it was just, it was just by a freak accident, right? Nothing they could do. But how did you feel like they responded?
Yeah, I think they did well. I mean, you can't do too much when something like that happens. Like you said, it's kind of just like unusual for that to happen. And I think the fact that it did happen so early, it was like, okay, let's not get, too carried away with like this game is going to get out of line. I mean, we've seen early goals in this rivalry, and we've seen games that have gone to 5-3, 6-2s or whatever. So I think they did well in the first half to kind of just keep composure, and they were challenging. I mean, if you don't forget, Diego Rossi had a chance to score 3 minutes into the game and a beautiful ball from Mark Anthony Kaye, which would have also changed the complexion of how that game unfolded. So I think LAFC was composed, and in that moment, I think, like I had mentioned, Bob was really adamant about getting the equalizer before halftime, and you could tell how he was kind of maneuvering the players and pushing them upfield to kind of get that. So it was good to see that. Bob obviously with LAFC is a super aggressive team, and he's an aggressive coach. So I didn't think they were really shaken. I think the first half they did stick to, I guess, the plan that they had to kind of see it through.
Yeah, and talking about LAFC, right? We know that Bob quickly made those adjustments in the second half, right? He brought in Mahal and Farfan for Cifuentes and Chiqui Palacios. I feel like Chiqui Palacios. I wasn't surprised by Palacios coming off, but I was a little bit surprised by Cifuentes coming off in the game. Obviously, I think he ended up going back to the 4-3-3. With Bayer, Rossi, and Mahala makes sense. Alicia, what were your thoughts on LAFC making those second half adjustments?
I actually think that they both made a lot of sense. I don't know, from home, I thought Cifuentes had a really anonymous game. I mean, there were times when I was like, I don't even remember hearing his name called or, anything like that in the first half. I just think it was a rough day for him. Obviously, he was the player who was tackled on the first goal for the Galaxy. It seems like Palacios is maybe having a bit of a rough start to his season. I think Bob maybe hinted at something after the last game too, saying, "Oh, we need to step it up a little bit." And he's been on Palacios's case in the past, and of course, Palacios did really well in the CCL, run to the CCL final. So it's not like he's just stinking up the joint. But I think there are games where Bob isn't really impressed with him. It seemed pretty clear that was what was the case in this particular game. Bringing on Farfan, who left back is his natural position, but there's a segment of the fan base that wasn't too impressed with his play at right back the last two games. I thought he did pretty well, honestly, but I thought in this game at left back he did really well. He had some really good balls, to try and spring scoring chances, and of course LAFC were chasing the game at that point. The winning goal didn't come on his side, right? It came on the opposite side of the field, so I don't think you can really blame him for what happened there. So I think that those were smart moves that made sense. And it was one of those situations where, in the Galaxy's case, I think they took a really early lead, and it's not like you say, okay, we want to take a lead late. I mean, you want to take a lead wherever you can take a lead. But I think they took a really early lead, and I think they kind of naturally were like, okay, well, we need to get into a shell and defend deep, and they went way too deep. There were like 20, 25 minutes of the game in the first half where the LAFC had complete control of the ball, and the only thing that the Galaxy could do was to get into a passing lane or to clear it quickly. They were not playing the ball at all. And so that was a problem, and that was something that they needed to fix. And so LAFC they did a really good job putting them under pressure. But they just didn't have the rub of the ball, the rub of the green. They didn't have the luck their way, I think, in a few cases, and it cost them. Yeah,
not just that, and also I would say Jonathan Bond was probably part of the reason why LAFC wasn't able to capitalize on some of those opportunities. Like Andy, you mentioned the going into the third minute. I think it was Jonathan Bond who came out on Diego Rossi and kind of made him adjust his run, because if Jonathan Bond didn't come out off his line, then Rossi could have had a clear shot. What were your thoughts on? Obviously, he got man of the match by the LA Galaxy and the fans. But what were your thoughts on Jonathan Bond as we were watching the game?
Big time, big time. I want to come on record and say what I said 2 weeks ago at the first game of the Galaxy season down in Fort Lauderdale, which I was at. I tweeted he's going to be in the conversation for goalkeeper of the year this season. And I said that from the first game. I think he stepped in well. He was up for the challenge again, and that's what you need in rivalry games. I mean, he made that huge double save somewhere around the 30th minute, which was amazing how he gets the deflection off Rossi, and he gets right back on his feet. And Latif strikes that ball really, really well towards the top crossbar, and he gets up and blocks that too. Bond has been, I think, the most important offseason acquisition for the team, behind Greg Bandy, obviously. Like I've mentioned, he's formed a good relationship with the team. You could tell that the players are really bonding with him. No pun intended on that, but he's really shown great qualities. And coming off of the last few seasons for the Galaxy, where we've mentioned the defensive lapses, and we don't know necessarily if this is a great problem that he's the league leader in saves, but he's making the saves, which is the important part. Galaxy are gonna fix their problems in the back little by little. But when you have somebody that's that secure, which is what he's shown in these first 4 games, it's gonna make them a lot more comfortable. So all the praise for Jonathan Bond. He's been amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean he had a solid game, and obviously it's unfortunate he's been scored on, but like we've talked about this before, we don't feel like those are on him. But another player that I felt also had a big game was Joel Araujo. Alicia, tell me what you saw from Joel Araujo in this game.
Yeah, I think he's been a little bit uneven to start the season. I think that's maybe a feature of his game. I think he has some good moments and bad moments, but I think by and large he was really good in this game. Along with Williams, I think he was making the most kind of headline grabbing, emergency defensive plays that were really like he was getting the foot in on the cross. He was stripping a player along the sideline before they broke free to really spring a counterattack, things like that. So I think it was a good performance from him. To me, I really would like to see him just like settle in at right back. I really don't want to see him get moved around the field. I don't think that does him any favors, honestly. And I think if he just gets more time to like really hone his position at right back, I think that'll help him a lot. But there are going to be a few moments every game where you're like, whoa, what are you doing, buddy? But I think overall, I think he had a good game in this one.
Yeah, he definitely stepped up, and I think he was definitely him and Chiqui Palacios always battling out. He definitely, outbeat Palacios in a couple of those one-on-one matches, and you could tell how motivated Julian Araujo was. And I felt like if the LA Galaxy were going to be successful, was because of Julian Araujo and being able to shut down some of those offensive threats on that right side. Another player that really impressed me was on the LAFC side was Diego Rossi. We go into the 62nd minute, we have this, the combination play by Blessing, Baird, and Diego Rossi ties the game, and and evens things out. I'm gonna quickly play the goal, and then Andy, I want your thoughts on the play.
Blessing. Baird, Diego Rossi. Gets it. It came off Ball's foot, but it is Diego Rossi. Last year's leading scorer in MLS. First goal of this year, and a tie game at El Tráfico. Well, never mind defending the rest of the game. How about defending another 30 seconds? You felt the energy coming. You felt the pressure from LAFC. Wonderful little combination. Rossi plays it, continues his run, gets in behind. How about the touch from Corey Baird, though? Recognizing, almost playing as a point man there. Just a little deft touch with the outside of the boot. And then Jonathan Bond has come up with countless saves on the night. And Rossi finally finds a way past with the left foot. Good low finish. Keeps.
So I mean that was a smooth touch by Corey Baird, and then Diego Rossi rarely misses from there. What were your thoughts on that goal?
It's pretty, man. It's a very nice goal. That's textbook soccer right there. Team link. Everybody kind of touches the ball, and I think the most impressive part for Rossi on that goal is he was in the play prior, like he was in the build-up as well, and his off the ball movements. It was just a subtle run. Speaking of Araujo, he kind of just sneaks right past him slightly, and that's what gets him into position. He's great, man. He's the focal point for this LAFC team right now, with obviously Carlos Vela still sidelined. And this is only a second game of the season, but I always say this with the Galaxy and LAFC games: you want these players that are ready for these big moments and are ready for the stage, the intensity. And both coaches obviously talked about that going into the game. Diego knows what it is to play against the Galaxy. He knows what it is to score goals against the team. He scored many of them already. So it's one of those things that you can't lose composure just because you're down 1-0. And that was the moment that you saw LAFC finally break that wall down. I mean, they were still knocking on the door the whole time. Like Alicia mentioned, the pressure from the first half really didn't slow down when the second half started. So they were right there. So it was kind of something that you saw coming for a bit, that it was like, all right, this goal is going to happen. But along the same lines, the Galaxy were defending well. And that's just a play that happens that is so quick the way it goes down. But Diego's composure at the end just to get in position and score there. I mean, it's what you expect from him, and it's good just to see him back on the field and scoring, because we all know the caliber of player that he is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a good goal. Quicker here, Sebastian's he said the Galaxy defense was atrocious. I don't know if I agree with that. He says, what do you think the Galaxy need to increase the defense? I think it's more games playing with each other. You still got a lot of players moving around the parts. G-Man says they can capture the alligator that was chilling at the Toronto FC practice, and the Galaxy defense would be 5 times better.
It's weird with the Galaxy, because I thought the defense was actually like, this is the most solid game.
Me too.
They're coming off a 3-0 route in Seattle, where Vanny was like, these guys need to step up. And one of the most important things to me about this week heading into the game was that Vanny mentioned that he would like to get a clean sheet in Tráfico. And that was like kind of like head scratcher to me because I'm like, you're coming off a 3-0 loss in Seattle, and teams have been scoring on you. The Red Bulls scored, Miami scored. Like you're talking about a clean sheet against LAFC, and for a good hour they were looking like maybe they could do it. So I thought the defense was pretty up to par. I think Greg had him motivated for this game more than I've seen this season and in the past year, I guess.
Yeah, I would say if you have a question, Mohammed, I apologize if I butcher your name. Go ahead and just drop in the chat. This is the best I've seen. I mean, they only gave up 1 goal. You know, they've averaged like two plus goals a game. So you know, and obviously we watched both teams and how they were able to limit LAFC to 1 goal. You know, it was mighty surprising. So after that happened, obviously Greg Vanney quickly makes adjustments. He brings in Cameron Dunbar and Sasha Klessman in the 63rd minute. And Efrain also comes in. Oh, excuse me. He brings in Cameron Dunbar. Yeah, Sasha Klessman, the 63rd minute. What were your thoughts on when Greg Vanney made those substitutions and he knew he had to, you know, bring in fresh legs into the game?
Well, at first I don't think I really saw an impact in the first couple of minutes because LAFC were really pushing to get a second goal, and the Galaxy were kind of like at their wits' end trying to, you know, just stop them and keep it to 1-1 for the time being. And I remember Kleshin came on the field and there were a couple of rough touches he had just to start with. And I was like, oh, I don't know, this may not work out very well. But they played their way into the game. And I think in particular, the homegrowns did a really, really good job. Like, I kind of missed it in the scramble for the, you know, on the second goal, but like Dunbar was the person who turned the ball over ultimately, you know, to get it to Chicharito to get the winner. So he's doing defensive work deep in the attacking end, you know, to try and strip the ball and to, you know, get a chance out of nothing really. And I mean, that was the difference in the game overall. So he's been fantastic. I'm really glad that he's actually getting playing time because the little bit we saw of him last year, he was really good. And then we never saw him again. And that was pretty frustrating. And then for Efrain, this was definitely his best, you know, shift of the season so far. I thought against Seattle, he was really disappointing. I don't think he really did anything on the day. And I think to an extent, he probably didn't get the role he ought to have against a really difficult opponent. I think he was put in a tough position in that game. But in this one, it was basically like hold possession, try and get us some more chances, like do what you do, you know, and make sure that we get to keep the ball a little bit more. And he did that. And I think he did a really good job of you know, pushing the ball upfield. He didn't cause any, you know, really great scoring chances himself, but just in the ability to hang on to the ball a little bit, he helped them quite a bit. And so that was really promising from him because I think people are expecting a lot from him. Like I said last week, it was a little bit not so good. So to have a stint like this, I think was really promising. And yeah, it's the kind of thing where like you can debate, you know, whether the Galaxy deserve to win, but I think like almost to a man, you know, just about to a man, you can like point to like that guy did a really good job. Like that guy did his part. You know, he made this one play that was really outstanding. This guy stood on his head all day, and you know they came together and did what they had to do to get the win. So I think in that respect, it was a really good day for the Galaxy.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good win, and obviously everything you mentioned about Franny, I agree. He definitely had an impressive, you know, a game or 20 minutes when he came into the Hugo Lopez says, "Wait, bring back the LAFC versus Galaxy fan." We will. We'll probably have him on tomorrow. He said, bring him like the latest you had on your last stream. He's like, I'm dying to see the reactions. We got the banter does not stop. You know, the banter, and that's what I love about this rivalry. It continues even after the game. But Andy, I wanted to ask you about obviously Kim Won. He came into the 70th minute, and Danny Masevsky. Those were the adjustments that Bob Bradley made. What were your thoughts on bringing in Bob Bradley bringing in Kim Won into a derby and this being his first experience in the MLS?
Interesting subs. I think if we were caught a little off guard of the halftime subs of Mahala and Farfan, then bringing in Kim at that point of the game was definitely catching us off guard. I like the decision. I think I've said it before. I mean, we're 4 seasons in, and sure, we're going to put all the weight of this game on the shoulders of these two teams until they play against each other again in August. But we have to remember that it is the 4th game of the season, and both these coaches are still trying to figure out what they have to work with. So I do like, giving him a chance. They brought him in. He was obviously a big deal signing, and we hadn't seen him. So I think for him getting his debut on that stage it's pretty cool. Just giving him a little bit of confidence, because it does a lot for players when they get those minutes, especially against in a rivalry game. But Bob said it's kind of unfair to even judge him off of his performance in that game because of the stakes of how quickly it happened. I can't say that I saw anything that I was taken away with, and I can't really say I saw that he was terrible. I think he went in and was very anxious to get involved, and sometimes those, I guess, emotions may get the best of you. But it's just good to know that they have that option defensively, where they're still trying to really figure out what their best ideas are, what their best subs are. So I liked it. In all, I didn't expect to see him at all. I think we talked about that at the stadium. That was definitely shocking. But once again, it is good to see Bob give him that chance in that moment.
Yeah, one thing I will say, speaking with Steve Hahn, who covers the Korean national team. So, we ran into him as soon as we got into the stadium, and we saw the list of the right, and we saw that Moon was going to be on the bench, and I told him, I was like, hey, your boy might get a chance to play. And this was his words. He was like, you think he's going to play in a derby? Like, you think that's going to be a first game? And I was like, all right, maybe you're right. Like, I was like, maybe you're right.
You don't know Bob.
Yeah. You're right. And then so I'm like watching the game, and then I'm like, yo, Kim Woo-mon's coming in. I'm like, well, who's he going to come in for? Like, Tristan Blackman, or, I was just surprised that, Eddie Segura came off, and you put Kim Woo-mon. And I thought it was because of an injury or something. Obviously, Bob addressed it afterwards, and it wasn't. I just thought that was interesting. So many of the defensive changes, because I don't think they were necessarily struggling on the defense. I felt like more offensively was where I think the changes could have been made. Right. I think that's where I was looking at. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not there on the field with coaching stuff, but looking at the game, I was like, I don't know if the defense is where the adjustments needed to be made. Alicia, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, especially because the center back who stayed on the field ended up, coughing up the ball for the, the go-ahead goal. So, I mean, it backfired big time. But, I mean, you don't make a sub saying, okay, who's the least likely to screw up big time, in the key moment. Like, that's not how you coach. So, I agree that to me, it doesn't make a lot of intuitive sense necessarily to say like, oh, of course, Eddie Segura has to come off. Like, he's steady Eddie. He's somebody who plays almost every minute of the season. And then in kind of the biggest moment, you're like, well, you're the sacrificial lamb. You got to go. I think he just really wanted to put Tristan in the middle. He really likes Tristan Blackman as a center back, and he's like determined to make it happen. So he did. And I thought that Kim had a pretty good debut. He clearly was very willing to go forward. I think that's probably going to help LAFC a lot in attack, and especially at this moment where the attack's not really like fully clicking. Like, if you get another body up and able to, progress the attack, hit a few crosses, things like that, like he may be able to help them kind of unlock things. Defensively, we didn't see that much from him, so I don't really think we can really make a good assessment. But considering how, crazy the moment was, I think he did pretty well in his debut. But yeah, I mean, in the end, the reshuffle of the back line didn't work. But you can't really predict, well, is my player going to try to dribble out of something in the corner and, give up the ball and then it's all over? Like, that rarely happens either. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, looking at that final play, it was very interesting. Andy, I know you have a background. You're Colombian, and we were talking on the way to the game, and you knew about Jesus Murillo. So tell the people a little bit about your background, and obviously you're from Colombia, and how long you've been following the Colombian players out there.
Yeah. With LAFC is interesting because both Jesus David Murillo and Edward Atuesta played on the same team, which is the team I root for in Colombia, Deportivo Independiente Medellin. So I've seen these players play in obviously in the Colombian league and seen them play in big moments. They both were part of championship teams there, luckily, which obviously boosts their resume when they get signed to a league that maybe nobody really knows about them. Atuesta, we always knew was going to be good. Atuesta was a player that came through the program, and we knew he was going to be a solid player. And I'm just glad that he's growing the way he is in MLS. The Murillo part to me was very iffy, just because I think that in Colombia he was not really considered a good defender, and the way that he gets his accolades here in MLS is like wow. But I did tell you the way when he got here, he's definitely grown. He's grown a lot, and I've seen qualities of what he's shown here that he definitely did not show when he was down in Medellin. But end of the day, he's a tall center back that is aggressive and quick with his feet too. So that that definitely boosts him. But I told you in the car, man, like he has some lapses, and as soon as I saw that goal, I was like, man, it's exactly what I was talking to Gio about a good 2 hours ago. It's just how it happened that way.
It was crazy that because you were talking about like that you were surprised that LAFC got him, and I was like, well, obviously I don't know like Colombian players like you do because that's your team. You watch them, and you had said certain things that you were surprised that they made that signing, and lo and behold, he's the one that commits the mistake and kind of to a point proves your point of what you already knew essentially about him, right? And we looked at each other, and I was like, you definitely know something I don't know. You know a lot more than what me or LAFC definitely know. And then so obviously that's why I'm asking you. So is this something that has happened before with Murillo?
I just think that it's the position that he came in is really kind of trying to fill a void that we mentioned. The Walker Zimmerman thing kind of threw LAFC's back line into a loop. And I feel like they've tried to consistently have a back four that they've wanted to count on. And I think in the past few games and going into last year too, we've seen them really move around and try to figure out, like Alicia said, do we want Tristan out? Do we want him in the middle? Do we want to play Eddie as more of a defensive mid and throw somebody else in there? Mohamed El Maner and all these names that they kind of just scramble around. And it's like they haven't really solidified that back line as much as we thought they have. I'm not going to say that Murillo is not a good player. He's a good defender, but I've seen those lapses and those moments in other games as well prior to. So it wasn't really surprising. I was just honestly shocked more so than that. I think I told you at halftime was the fact that Bob was playing with three back and he was giving Chicharito and Murillo the open field. And I'm like, that's a recipe for disaster, which quickly changed in the second half. But I kept watching Chicharito kind of off the ball, like trying to get into little spaces. And I'm like, if a ball goes to Chicharito's feet and he kind of just kicks it one way a little further, it's a wrap for him. So I don't want to, like I said, I'm not going to trash the guy. I don't think he had a good game at all. And obviously the last play or the last goal, it's going to be a stain on that, but he's played well for LAFC in the time that he's been here. Obviously that's the reason why they locked him down. I'm just, I wasn't completely sold on the move, and it is what it is. I think having him next to Eddie Segura, having two Colombians that really relate to each other and kind of know each other is very beneficial. So that part is good, and it's just once again trying to figure out. We mentioned it, I think, talking before the Seattle game, and like a defensive back line is not really something that you want to tinker around with. So it's the fastest you could get the solidified forward players, and then go from there. It makes it a lot easier because then you get into a position that Bob is pulling Eddie, putting in Kim, pulling somebody else, putting in Farfan, and then it gets really complicated. So I don't think we're going to see LAFC in those positions much, but it definitely is a little bit of a cause for concern moving forward if that continues for sure.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing that I was like making all those changes. It just didn't make sense to me, and I was like, it was just too much of a mix up. And then they want you to recruit in the chat James Rodriguez they're talking a little bit of smack. He's like, Andy is Colombian. Tell him did he like getting smacked by my country 6-2. Andy, your response?
I did not like that at all. So.
Viva Ecuador.
I'll say it. Ecuador looks good. Colombia at
Sebastian's
the moment
ruthless.
Did not look great. So I'll leave it at that. It was not an enjoyable game to watch.
They're saying William is apparently linked to us. Hey, trust me, William's apparently linked to all LA teams. So that we don't need to get into that just yet. But Arsenal is not having a good season. But yeah, just to finish off this game, I thought that was the most interesting, and I want to play the goal. I have the goal here. Where is it at? Here we go. So that the goal happened in the 79th minute. Kim Moon and Danny Musovsky, Kim Moon came in front of Eddie Segura in the 70th minute. So 9 minutes afterwards, and obviously we're not at practice. We don't know how much time those guys have with each other, right? But we haven't seen Kim play. Like, it's different playing in practice than playing a game, right? And when you make those switches, is that something that LAFC was practicing this week? I'm assuming so, because it's not something you're just going to want to throw out there and try, right? But it's just something. I don't think that's something you want to test something in this game, right? And I don't think the defense was at a point that, like, hey, we need to do this. But to credit to the LA Galaxy side, they took advantage of it. Alicia, when you saw that goal and you saw Murillo give it up, what were your thoughts on Chicharito and then Jonathan Dos Santos scoring on that?
Yeah, it was a heady play all around. Like I mentioned earlier, Dunbar, put the pressure on Murillo and got him to cough up the ball, got it quickly to Chicharito, who really had no angle. I'm pretty impressed with the fact that Chicharito turned, got around a defender, hit the cutback, and then I forgot about Efrain Alvarez, like basically dummying it or kind of ushering it over to Jonathan Dos Santos to hit one time. And I mean, that turned out better, because if Efrain had taken it, it probably would have gotten saved. But the fact that he let it run on to Jonathan to just slam it, that meant that Pablo Cisniega had really no chance. So, yeah, I mean, I think just heads up play by the Galaxy all around. I think credit to them for just being ready. Like, I think the 2020 version of this team, they would not have gotten to steps 2, 3, or 4 of that play. Like, they would have screwed something up along the way. And the fact that they were in sync, they knew the next play that was coming in the sequence, and they were able to execute is really impressive from them. So kudos to them for, again, taking advantage of like the one really, really good look that they had in the second half, and that making the difference in the game.
Yeah,
we talk about as much as you talk about how impressive the LAFC goal was, that Galaxy goal was just as impressive. Chicharito, like you said, had no angle. That turn that he makes so quickly towards the end line throws Tristan off just slightly, and then the ball he plays is ridiculous. And we have to give him a shout out, because he apparently is Nostradamus now after the game, saying that he had told Jonathan Dos Santos he was going to give him an assist, and it happened. And Jonas said he was yelling at Evra to get out of the way, like, let me shoot, and it turned out beautiful.
That's when you yell in Spanish and English, like, move, bro. Like, I'm coming in.
And Chicharito plays it just so calmly, so well. The pass is right where it needs to be, blindly, but he knows that somebody's going to be there to hit it. I mean, that's as nice as a goal as you'll see in that circumstance, for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like, to Efrain's, credit, he had a game all around to hear Jonathan Dos Santos, and Jonathan Dos Santos talking about a player that needed a goal and needed a special moment at home and is in a contract year. Jonathan Dos Santos, right? And you saw it in the emotion that, like, he ripped off his shirt, he took his shirt, like, you felt that. And I was like, I wasn't expecting that from him, but then it clicked to me. I was like, yo, this Jonah is like, he needed this. He needed, especially against LAFC, right? He's gonna be remembered now. And he said that after the game. He's like, this is a game I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and that's when I was like, this really meant a lot to him, because he knows, hey, I have to do something for my team. I have to do something for my city. And I put us on. And I liked his response. And at the end, obviously, he says LA's ours, because, they win and stuff, but, be bold about it. And, I like that he was the one that won them the game. And I like that, it was Chicharito that assisted to him. And like you said, Chicharito said after the press conference that he meant to cut it back. What have you made so far of Jonathan Dos Santos, Alicia?
Yeah, I think his season, he's been a little bit quiet so far, but he hasn't been a liability. I mean, I think for a large part of 2020, he was a liability when he was on the field. And of course, he was injured for part of that time, or he was coming back from injury, or he was out entirely. And so I think he looks healthy, which is obviously a big plus. And, like you said, I mean, he's not somebody who's going to score a ton of goals, but he can pop up with one from time to time. He actually scores a decent amount for Mexico. So if he can get to something approaching that production for the Galaxy, that would help them a lot, I think. But right now they don't need his goals necessarily, except for, once in a while. So yeah, I mean, I think, and also he's somebody that, he's been playing with some really young defensive midfielders, right? Like, he's been playing with Adam Saldana, and he's been playing with Carlos Harvey for the most part. Against Seattle, he played with Efrain Alvarez. And that's kind of a tough spot for a veteran to be in. You have to do a little bit more of the directing and water carrying for those young guys and kind of get them up to speed and everything. But I think, they've done a pretty decent job of that so far. So credit to him for stepping up. And, he hasn't been talking as much as Chicharito, obviously, publicly about, this, I have to get right this year. This is a big year for me. But it's clear that he's also in a similar frame of mind. Like, he's going to give it his all. He's not here to just coast by in the last year. He's here to really perform. And, one of the problems last year with the Galaxy was that like all of their main players underachieved. So even if the players like achieve, then they're going to be so much better. And so far they're doing that and maybe a little bit more. So if they can continue to do that, then that should help the Galaxy's cause a lot.
Yeah, and I mean and this is what you want from your captain, right? And this is what you want from Jonathan Dos Santos, especially in a contract year. So right now they have the LA Galaxy in the Western Conference number 3 with 9 points. After 4 games, it's looking good for them, right? On the other side, LAFC, they have 5 points. Then they travel this week in another tough game against Seattle, the best team, I believe the best team in the league, right? They're number 1 in the Western Conference. We saw what they did to the LA Galaxy, and we don't know if Carlos Vela is going to be available. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because they're missing their playmaker. They're missing Carlos Vela. They're missing. You saw, and if Carlos Vela's in this game, then it's probably a different story for LAFC, right? But I think moving forward, I don't know if we're going to see Carlos Vela against Seattle, because the only reason I say that is because of the turf. And if he's dealing with that quad, and we know how the game is a lot different in Seattle, so I wonder when we will see Carlos Vela, and obviously that injury is a lot more serious than that we initially thought. Annie, what are your thoughts with LAFC moving forward? These next couple games, this next game potentially without Carlos Vela again.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that Bob clarified that it was a minor injury at the post-game press conference, which everybody kind of had a nice reaction to that, because they're like, minor doesn't mean missing 4 games, but it's one of those situations.
Let me just put this clear. When Bob says minor, it's never minor. So go ahead. Don't mean to interrupt you.
So, I mean, it's interesting, man, because like Alicia said, the attack is what we're used to seeing from the LAFC squad, and it just hasn't been up to par. And we talked about it after the game that perhaps this team is not as deep as we always like to say, and maybe that's just the effect of not having Carlos Vela on the field. But it's like, when we talk about all the subs they made, they were mostly defensive subs. There was not really a big change besides putting Mahala in there in the beginning of the second half that really gave him a different look in attack. I mean, Danny Musowski, I can't remember him actually having moments in that game. Maybe I kind of spaced out at the end because I was too busy watching Efrain Alvarez meg people and do bad things. But in the case of LAFC, it's like now I think this is a good thing for them, because they're going to start feeling this pressure that they may not have ever felt this early on. Like, they're used to having these successful games and these successful starts, and this is not the start that they obviously want to get off to, and not having their star player on the field. So this is going to put a lot of pressure on Bob. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the players. I mean, I'm sure they're not feeling well after losing the game the way they did, and then having to travel up to Seattle, a team that he just played 2 weeks ago, that they didn't really get much from them. It's always a hard game when it comes to playing Seattle. So it's a tough opening schedule for them. The results haven't been going the way. It's going to be interesting to see how they react. And I think that the narrative of that DP spot and that needed striker that perhaps they could fill is going to keep coming around the more that this progresses, where maybe Vela's not on the field. And if he is on the field, then we have to kind of consider it like, hey, it's really going to be his first game back, the game that he does play, because he played all of 20 minutes against Austin. So it's interesting, because even on that goal that the Galaxy scored, the first opening Chicharito goal, when Sifu was trying to break out of his attack, I thought instantly, if Vela's on the field, that ball goes automatically to the right. And Sifu had a hesitation of like, where am I going to go with it? And as soon as he hesitated is when Derek Williams slid in. So like you said, if Vela's on the field, it changes the dynamic of that team. And I think right now they're missing him way too much. And I think the team is good enough to show qualities that they could play without him. But right now they haven't been doing that.
Yeah, and quickly just answer some chat questions. We don't need Jonah to score a ton of goals, but we do need someone else who scores. Can't beat Chicha, I agree. He said, Anthony says Vela might get minutes this week, Bob said. I don't recall Bob saying that. What do you guys think?
We're the ones who talked to Bob, so.
Yeah, we're the ones that talked about. I don't think Bob said that. Bob wouldn't even say that, to be honest. But thank you for your comment, though. What do you guys think of the Cali Classico?
I'm not trying to be a hater.
No, I'll answer that quickly. I respect the history of the Cali Classico. I know the history of the LA Galaxy and San Jose, but to me, nothing It's a different vibe when you talk LAFC, LA Galaxy, because it's LA. It's LA. That's where I'm more excited. But I do respect the Cali Classico. I do like it. I do know the history, but I know the rivalry is more intense, and I know Galaxy fans don't feel the same way. They feel like they have other rivals. Totally understandable. I get that. But I think when you talk about LAFC, this is a game that you're like, oh, we have to beat them. We run LA, right? It's not. I don't think you have the same sense when it comes to San Jose because they don't live in the same block. And I just want to finish. Alicia lost their expansion. I don't know about that. Hold on. LFC lost their expansion team. Tam, welcome, welcome to MLS. Well, yeah, I mean, trust me. Yeah, after the expansion money, things get interesting. You have to be a lot more creative. So I want to play this. We're gonna play Alexi Lawless's thing after the game, and I want to get you guys' thoughts. Very controversial of what he said. That's what Alexi Lawless is. So we'll play the video.
Greg Vanny now in charge of the only club to win 5 MLS Cup titles, but the Galaxy have dipped as of late at the same time that LAFC has burst onto the scene, not just here in LA, but across North America as well. So right now, who is winning, Lex, that battle for Los Angeles?
All right, I preface this with a couple of things. Number one, don't kill the messenger. And number two, the great Janet Jackson said, "What have you done for me lately?" Okay, number one, stars, the Galaxy, Chicharito, Zlatan, the Dos Santai, Ashley Cole, LAFC, Carlos Vela. Galaxy win this one. Success, Galaxy have missed the playoffs the last 3 of the 4 years. LAFC, playoffs all 3 years, CCL final, Supporters Shield, best regular season in MLS history. Stadium, all right, don't kill the messenger. The bank is steeper, it's louder, it's more intimate, and by the way, it is in LA. The brand, look, I go around LA all the time. I see a lot of LAFC gear out there. It is cool, and it is still new. And then relevance. All right, listen. The Los Angeles Galaxy, yes, they are a global super club. They are the Blue Bloods, but in Los Angeles right now, there is only one super club, and it is LAFC, the nouveau riche.
One super club, and it's LAFC. What? What? Alicia, your thoughts quickly, and people in the chat. Let me know you guys' thoughts.
Well, I think it's actually pretty finely poised at this moment. For me, I mean, I know what Alexi's doing. Like he's trying to be provocative, so we talk about it, and I totally understand that, and I respect the game. But I think realistically speaking, it's pretty balanced, honestly. I think, LAFC is kind of settling into the post new car smell era, and we'll have to see what happens from here. The Galaxy have been on a huge decline for several years. I think that they finally have the right coach and they can kind of come out of that and they can be a contender again. And that's going to flip things potentially quite a bit. I think both teams can potentially be quite good on the field. And then when it comes to marketing, a lot of it when it comes to Los Angeles is if you have a good team, then, the marketing wins are going to come easily. And if you have a bad team, you don't get any traction. So if these teams perform, then they're going to get some buzz. And if they don't, then, they're kind of dead on their feet. So to me, it's pretty even, Steven. Where I live, way far away from the city, I see a mix of LAFC and Galaxy stuff, but I would say probably on balance, a little bit more Galaxy stuff. I just think the brand's a little more established. But LAFC, I have a lot of love for LAFC too. And I do see there is one father at my daughter's school who wears an LAFC shirt. And I said, "Hey, nice shirt, man." And he was like, "Huh?" And good. Never mind. I guess I won't bond with you over that anymore.
Lisa, you're gonna ruffle some feathers, but okay. Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, we know what it is. This is a reach. This is clickbait, and exactly served its purpose. I mean, if you want to talk about just the things that he did, like branding, like the LA Galaxy have the second nicest jersey in the league this year behind Seattle Jimi Hendrix kit. I mean, that community kit is amazing. So there's no way that you could even argue the fact that the Galaxy are losing steam. I mean, like Alicia mentioned, the first few years, okay, sure, it's a new team. This is season 4, man. We're not going to give LAFC this new team tag anymore. They've already taken their lumps. They've already, gone to the playoffs. They've won Supporters Shield. They made it to the Champions League final. So it's time that we're gonna say it as it is. And when it comes down to it, when you put it back to the fact that we're talking about LAFC versus LA Galaxy, El Tráfico, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is, man. The Galaxy run this rivalry, and they have ran it from the beginning. Just because LAFC won that playoff game and they had the big game in the MLS's back tournament doesn't change the fact that the LAFC have not won in Carson. It doesn't change the fact that they've had these moments, the ghost of Ibra, the ghost of Andre Horta's terrible pass back. Like, these games are won with intensity, with heart, and it doesn't necessarily have to be who's playing the best soccer at the moment or who plays the best soccer that day. The LAFC had the 61% possession. They did what they wanted to do. They had their game, but at the end of the day, the Galaxy win it because that was the resilience that they had to show, and that's kind of what my takeaway from it is. Like, the Galaxy have known how to prepare for these games. So sure, you're gonna have fans in LA that are happy to have the new brand, the new hat. I think the LAFC logo is nice. The black and gold color scheme is really nice. But at the end of the day, like, you can't forget the Galaxy have been here and continue to be that global brand. And he everything that he says there is far-fetched, because what bigger global soccer players could you have than Zlatan and Chicharito? I mean, whether or not it worked for the Galaxy when Zlatan was here, we talked about how much exposure that brings to the league and to the team, and how much Zlatan did,
relevance,
regardless of them not being able to get to the playoffs that first year and then them losing to LAFC. I mean, he was right there chasing Carlos Vela for the Golden Boot the whole season. The same way that the teams motivate each other, he motivated LAFC and motivated Vela to have that 2019 year that they had. So there's no way that we discount any of that. And the whole Carson LA thing is a conversation for the fans that has no significance in any actual circle. So I mean, LAFC for sure, like, the fans know that LAFC applies the pressure, and just because they had that great 2019 and supporter shield and then beating the Galaxy finally in that playoff game is always going to go a long way in the conversation. But if you take a step back and look at the big picture, there's no way that you mentioned that the LAFC has the edge on the Galaxy really in any category, because I don't see it that way at all.
Yeah, what I will say is there's not one, there's two. I mean, you can't have one without the other. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like what Galaxy were here before, right? They have the history. They did everything prior to LAFC. But what I will say, once LAFC came into town, I've started to see a lot more Galaxy jerseys. Like, when LAFC came to town, it was like the pride, like, I represent the Galaxy. No, I represent LAFC, right? Like, if you were a true G, quote unquote, right? If you're a true Galaxy fan, like, you rocked your jersey. Like, you were rocking your jersey. Like, I'm rocking my jersey. I'm a Galaxy fan. The pride, that's what I've noticed. Like, I had never noticed how many Galaxy jerseys were within the city, right? And that's the thing that I noticed about this rivalry. But I don't know. I don't think there's two. There's one super club. I think there's two, and they push each other, right? Obviously, I do see a lot more LAFC stuff out there, But I wouldn't. And you mentioned Zlatan. Zlatan made not just LA Galaxy relevant, it made MLS relevant in Europe. Yeah, I remember, like, I would post like a Zlatan video or interview, it'd get like 5,000 views, like, because it was Zlatan. It was literally, and he plays for the LA Galaxy. It was automatic. It was just like a 1-minute clip, and it'd have like people from all over the world hit me up for like a clip of Zlatan, and like, so it's like, obviously the stars, but also I would add the relevance there, and I don't think they're far off. But when it comes to the game, right, what's the most important thing, right, to the fans and everybody, is the game. Who's won this game so far? Obviously, right now, Chicharito did what he was supposed to do yesterday. I wanted to see him score a goal, and I feel like that was a game yesterday, or Saturday was a game he had to score a goal, right? Because that's one thing that I feel like for him, he needed to do, not just for himself, but for the fans. Be like, that's a game you need to show out, and had a goal, had an assist, and bam, right? And I think with that, it increases the rivalry, increases, like, now Galaxy have the edge over LAFC. And I know you asked Bob Bradley this question about that they haven't won. I'm going to paraphrase your question, but LAFC have not won at Dignity Health Sports Park, Carson, or whatever, you name it, right? They have not won that, and that's one thing LAFC has struggled with, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, the rivalry is there, but there's not one super club, and I know why Alexi does this and why he was doing it, right? To ruffle some feathers, and he plays his role, and essentially this is what he is, and that's exactly what he did here. So I don't agree with it, but we're talking about it, and I think that's what Alexis Lalas's job was. So, but yeah, overall, Alicia, how do you see this moving forward, right? Because I feel like this game was critical for both teams. But obviously, Galaxy, they move on to Austin, and LAFC move on to Seattle. But how do you see these two teams moving forward to potentially the next match, which I think it's in August or later this year?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of games between now and when they play again. So I think, a lot's going to happen in the meantime. I think based on the start, I don't want to get too carried away, because I remember last year with the Galaxy, when they came back to the local return to play phase, they won the first 4 games. And so it was like, oh, they've turned a corner, and then they lost almost every single game from there on out. I don't expect it's going to be like that again. I think that Greg Vanney knows what he's doing, and I think that they have actually turned the corner this time. But of course, you never know. We'll have to see how the games turn out. But suffice it to say, I think both teams are good, and I think they're going to be. I don't necessarily think that they're both going to be at the top of the standings, but I think they're going to comfortably be playoff teams at the very least. And so I think that they're going to continue to win more games than they lose. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the summer transfer window. If either team is going to bring any new players aboard, they might both be pretty close to the limits, but you never know. Maybe spring a surprise trade or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of games to go. We'll probably 15, 20 before we get to the next one. So we'll have to see what happens. But no, I still think that the Galaxy look like they're doing pretty well. I think LAFC have some things to work out for sure. But I think at their core, they're a good team, and I don't think that they're going to fall apart. They just need to fix some of the things that are ailing them right now. And I think we may see 2 very good teams come into the next meeting between them. And if that's the case, then I hope it will be, and I hope it'll be another good game.
Yeah, Hugo in the chat says August 28th. It's my ex's B-Day.
You don't have to worry about it then. You can watch the game.
Yeah, you can go to the game now, Hugo. So don't worry about that. Sebastian says he's broke. So Danilo says thanks, Gio, Andy, and Alicia. Guys, we're just gonna wrap it up here. We've gone over an hour. So Andy, let the people know where they can follow you.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is my name as it appears on the screen, just with the underscore in the middle and the underscore Deossa. My content will be there. I just published a Galaxy story earlier today. I write for Yahoo Sports, so I'll be hopefully at as much games as possible and interacting with people there, just following these LA teams and MLS from a bigger picture. So give me a shout.
Yep. Alicia?
You can find my work on LAFC at angelsonparade.com and on the LA Galaxy at lagconfidential.com. And you can find me on Twitter at soccermusings.
Guys, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to G-Man, always great with the comments. Everybody, Hugo. If you guys are listening, tune in on Monday nights. We're talking LA. Well, today we're only doing one podcast talking LAFC and LA Galaxy. We don't need to do a recap. But if you guys are listening, make sure tune in. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on here live. Love you guys' comments on here. And if you guys are on Facebook and YouTube, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Would greatly appreciate it. Everybody that's on here. You guys can follow me at Joe Garcia LA on Twitter. Give us a like, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook at LA Soccer Hub. So for Alicia, for Andy, this is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.